The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
And welcome back once again, wrestling fans. It is the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jason Bryant with you as always. We've got a lot of stuff coming up here on the horizon. The postseason is here. We've had the NJCAA and the NAIA host their regional and district championships, so they are on their way to the national championships in a couple of weeks. We've got Division III and Division II regionals coming up this weekend as we record this and release this on February 19th, 2019, 2/19/19. Speaking of 1999, you can get the Matt Talk Online digital preview guide for the NCAA Division I championships. But if you use the promo code JB, go to wrestlingpreviewguide.com/JB. That will apply a $5 discount, $14.99 to get all the facts, stats, and information you need about the 2019 NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships. That is a digital preview guide. So if this is your first time listening to this program, well, thank you. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. This episode going to feature Ronnie Delk, the head wrestling coach at Perry High School in Perry, Oklahoma. But he wrestled, Division I. He knows a little bit about the championships. We'll talk to him about that and the program at Perry. But when we get back to this preview guide, something I've done for 5 or 6 years, can't exactly figure out the official start date of it because the first one was for subscribers of Amateur Wrestling News back when I was working with the Open Mat and AWN, and it was a subscriber add-on. Now this being, nearly 200 pages. I am combing through data to see what more I can cram in here for you, because each year, hey, I get these questions. Hey, well, when was the last time this, or when was the last time that? Well, now I'm trying to answer more of those questions in one simple guidebook, one preview guide, wrestlingpreviewguide.com/JB. It'll be saving you $5, so $14.99 off the retail price. And it is seriously, when you get it in your hands, you're going to love it. This, again, is your first time listening to the show. It's MattTalkOnline.com, the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, the flagship podcast of the Matt Talk Podcast Network, the largest and most diverse on-demand audio wrestling network in the world for the sport of wrestling. So thank you for hanging out. And I'm trying to think of anything else that's relevant if you are a first-time listener. If you're a multi-time listener and you like what this program and what this network provides, including collegewrestlingscoreboard.com, which is the most robust college wrestling scorebook in the country. Every score that we can track down of every division, so it's not just, we're not concentrating on just 75 schools in Division I. It's all those kids out there scrapping Division I, Division II, Division III, the NAIA, the junior colleges, the women's. We are fighting to get those results up there, and as promptly, only place you can find college wrestling standings as well. Wrestling at Matt Talk Online, collegewrestlingscoreboard.com. That's part of everything that I'm putting together with the Almanac. So if you like that, you want to contribute to the effort, again, this is a fan-supported show, fan-supported outlet. Go to matttalkonline.com/join the team or patreon.com/matttalkonline. You can offer up whatever you'd like to contribute to this network. You get some cool stuff. As a matter of fact, the 20-ounce pint glasses are here. I realize that's a contradiction in terms, because a pint is not 20 ounces, but a glass that is 20 ounces that will fit your tall boy of your craft beer or your regular beer of choice. If you're in Iowa, for example, Busch Light. Hey, it's like the official beer of Iowa. So you get that out there. You become a patron. You can get the guide as part of that. You can get the glass as part of that. You can get some shirts, some beanies. I know the shirts went really quick this year, so I've only got a limited portion of those left. But again, matttalkonline.com/join the team or patreon.com/MattTalkOnline. That's all I've got. Going to beat you over the head with. We'll be back, talking about a bunch of postseason stuff in the next couple of weeks. I will be making the trip to the NAIAs to announce the NAIAs, then to Roanoke for the Division IIIs, then back early Sunday morning from Division III to cover the first time I've ever going to be able to attend a Big Ten championship, and it's 12 minutes from my house. So I'll be going D3 Big Tens that weekend, and we got a week off. I know the NCAA and the NAIA Women's National Championships are that weekend, but quite frankly, I'm going to need that break between D3 Big Ten / D1 heading in Pittsburgh. So that's my travel itinerary coming up in the next couple of weeks. And enjoy this episode with Ronnie Delk, head wrestling coach, Perry High School, Perry, Oklahoma. here on this edition of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, episode 495. Yeah, a lot of podcasts. And I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for Short Time. And our guest today is the head coach at the legendary Perry High School Wrestling Program in the great wrestling state of Oklahoma. He is the AD. He is the head coach, Ronnie Delk. Big reason we're having Ronnie on the show is Perry just celebrated a milestone victory, 1,000 dual meet victories. And first of all, Coach Delk, congratulations. That's quite a milestone for such a prestigious program.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be a small part of it. Almost 100 years of wrestling, and for us to cap that off and keep it rolling is kind of special.
What's the landscape of Oklahoma wrestling like, and where does Perry and its I guess legendary legacy fit?
Right now, we got Tuttle. They're the class above us. They're probably the best team in the state. We're in the small class, but we compete against all of the classes. We don't really wrestle 3A teams until we have to at the end of the season. I think I don't know if you'd say it's a secret, but it's definitely a good plan to keep the success rolling here, is competing against those better schools, Tuttles and Choctaws, and those teams like that, and then traveling out of the state, going to Kansas City Stampede and stuff. There's 4 classes here, 3A, which is what we're in, all the way up to 6A, which is Broken Arrow and those teams. But, we just had dual state 2 weeks ago, which we won. We hosted regionals this weekend here in Perry, which is the first time since '93, which was a pretty special event. The little small gym was packed with, hundreds of people and 26 teams, and we ended up winning it by 120 points with 6 champs. So now we're getting ready for this weekend.
Yeah, when we what we know about Perry outside of the state of Oklahoma, one, there's obviously the wrestling culture. People of the older ilk know Dan Hodge, Jack Van Beber, those names. But there's been 29 medals won. Most recently, I think Jake Hager's the name people know of, or Jack Swagger as his days in the WWE. I don't know which name he's going to go by in the MMA. I think he's going back and forth with it. But, the legacy, would you put that singlet on for Perry? Is there kind of like an understanding of what you're stepping into as a coach and an athlete?
Oh, absolutely. That's people, once you put the Perry singlet on and the Perry's across your chest, you got that P on your chest, it's, you got a target on your back now too. When somebody beats you, it's a big win. You're going to get the best out of everybody you wrestle because you're from Perry, and we have that level that we're at, and it makes it fun. This weekend, one of our guys got upset in the semis, and the entire gym erupts. And I tell you, after the semis, I was telling you guys, why they get so excited? Because they just beat a Perry guy. You need to start worrying when they quit doing that, when they quit cheering against you. That means you're not doing your job.
When it comes to coaching there, I mean, you're from Collinsville. What did you know about Perry as a high school athlete and coming through the state of Oklahoma as a youth?
I remember competing at the state tournament, and back then there was a 2A and 3A, and Perry was in 2A, and I remember wrestling, in my state finals match, and I just hear the crowd erupt, and I look, and I'm in the middle of wrestling, and it's the whole Perry section at the Perry tournament. It's it's from top to bottom. It's nothing but maroon. So you've always kind of known about Perry. I actually wrestled in the Perry junior high tournament in the 8th grade, and I won it, and I beat a couple of Perry guys. And it's funny, I see them now in town, and I actually coach their kids in my Little League program. And it's pretty special,
For those who are unaware, Perry's a town of approximately 5,000 people. I mean, what's the quality of life like in Perry? And then, it sits outside of Stillwater. I guess that's the nearest major city, or Enid the other way. But when you see I guess it's North Enid, right? North Enid, yeah. So you're kind of sitting in there. I mean, how do you describe what day-to-day life is like in Perry for those from the outside?
It's a blue collar community. Most of the families, most of my wrestlers, dads and moms work at Ditch Witch, and it's a working class, and these kids, they work for everything they have. Nothing is given to them, and it's taught to them from a young age all the way up. And there's an expectation that's held in the wrestling room that carries over in the everyday life, whether it's in the classroom or even the people that are done wrestling they take on, and if they go to Ditch Witch or if they go to a bank here in town. But it's a very small town community. Like you said, it's about 5,000 people, and the population has been that for, hundreds of years. And, but it's a working class community.
Kind of fits the motif of the sport of wrestling.
Exactly. It's hard nosed, hard work. A lot of the guys are just, when people need hay hauled in the summer, they call me and say, hey, I need 5 or 6 wrestlers, because they know that those guys are going to go work.
We look at the milestone, 1,000 dual meet wins. A year or two ago, I had a friend of mine out there who coaches out in New Jersey at Roselle Park, and that program had 1,000 wins. There's not very many across this nation that have been around long enough to even come close to accomplishing that goal, let alone be good enough to be around that long and win all these types of dual meets. So as that 1,000 started coming and you start doing the math and say, oh, it's going to be this season, what's the mindset for you, the alumni, the parents, the kids on this, circling that 1,000 number?
We have a guy by the name of Mark Kirk, who's a historian here, and every record he keeps track of. He calls it a sickness, but I think it's a gift. But every year he has a history book, and it's updated history stats. And he called me up August, September, and said, hey, I'm just going to let you know, not to put any pressure on you, but if the season plays out, the finals of the Ram Duels, if you beat Allen, Texas, because that was the team that was going to be there, that'll be your 1,000th dual win. We're like, that was kind of a mindset. We were going to do that. We came 10, we ended up losing by 10. But, we came back home, and we knew we had a home duel against Guthrie, which is a bigger class team, and we had them at home. So it made it even more special that we got to do it in front of our home crowd. It didn't really set in until the next day when I went there's 2 coffee shops here, Conoco's or whatever you want to call them, and walk into the first one, and old men want to just talk wrestling, and you go down to the other one to do whatever, and they want to talk about wrestling. But when it happened, it was pretty special. And I'm glad it got to happen in the town, because there's a lot of, the very first state champ, Mr. St. Clair from Perry, he actually got to be there for that dual win, because he's a part of it too. So that was pretty special for him.
I'm just doing some rudimentary Googling here just to compare this thing. So you're a small school in Oklahoma. What's the enrollment at Perry High School?
About 350 kids.
Okay, and the city is
on a good year.
And the city is about just under 5,000, according to the last thing I looked up. To compare this, Allen High School in Texas, its enrollment is more than the city of Perry, Oklahoma. That's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Best at the Perry Junior High tournament. They came up and wrestled in it. And, I've been down there and I've seen their school and stuff. And he tells me their high school is 2,000 kids per grade. And I was like, that is insane. Couldn't imagine having that. You just walk around and go, hey, you're an athlete. Come here. I'm going to make you a wrestler. So, we average about 30 kids a year in our wrestling room, and they've got hundreds.
Yeah, and of course their football program. I mean, I know the NCAA is done events at their place at the Allen Field, which is it's like a sub offshoot of their football state. It's kind of crazy that was a school of that size could have been and it was so close. So when you guys are used to going in against bigger schools, it's not kind of a thing there. It's like, yeah, we're used to it. We're always a small school. I'm from a small school that kind of has that kind of same thing. Going against the big boys. At some point, it doesn't even become a thing anymore. It's like, yeah, they're bigger. We're used to it. It doesn't even serve as motivation.
No, it doesn't. What we look at is, Allen, Texas is a nationally ranked team, and we want to be on that. Last year we knocked off 2 nationally ranked teams. We could never, for some reason, crack into the top 50. So this was our chance to, against Tuttle. They're not number 9 in the nation. We lost to them by 8 points. At the time, Allen, Texas was number 16, and we lost to them by 10. So you flip a couple. That was our goal. We didn't look at it as, that school is, huge, and it was never that. It was just we're going to line up and wrestle, a bunch of wrestlers, and that's what makes our sport great. It doesn't matter the size of the school, just the talent, the hard work that we put in.
I'll go back a little bit about what got you into coaching. First, I guess we have to figure out what got you into wrestling. Growing up in Oklahoma, it's most people outside of that state would just assume that, you wrestle in Oklahoma growing up.
Yeah, actually, I played basketball in the 3rd grade. My uncle, he gave me a hard time, and my cousin had won a trophy, and I was like, man, I want a trophy. And he's like, well, you're not going to do it playing basketball. My whole family's short, and so I got into wrestling, and I got my whole first year I got whooped every match, and then the next year I kind of figured some things out, and then just kind of took off from there. And then middle of my 8th grade year, I really started getting serious about it, and I won state, and then I got into high school, and then I got to go wrestle at Oklahoma State, which was awesome, fun experience.
How much pressure is it, or how much do you guys growing up, whether it be you want to wrestle at Oklahoma State, you want to wrestle in Norman at OU? I mean, where's the split come? Do the wrestling kids have say, all right, we want to be Cowboys or we want to be Sooners? How does that split? I mean, where does the state go when you're a wrestler and you're like, yeah, I got to go here, and where does the loyalty go?
Well, I always joke with people because I grew up, my whole family was an OU fan. Grew up, that's what OU football. But when it came to wrestling, everybody knew that OSU wrestling is the best, and I went on a recruit trip to OU, and all I really wanted to do was go walk on the football field. And I went to OSU for a recruit trip, and I just fell in love with it. And it was more small town home, and a lot of my guys, they're Oklahoma State wrestling fans, and it's funny because they wear OU football shirts, but when it comes to wrestling season, they know who's the best. So it's kind of funny.
The decision to go to Oklahoma State was, how was the recruiting process for you? You talked about the recruiting trip, but how highly recruited were you? Where did they see you fitting in the lineup back in that era?
Well, Coach, Coach Spates actually came to my house from OU, and he wanted me to come in and be a 33-pounder. And then Mark Branch at the time, he called me the next day. I was going to dead set. I'm going to go to OU. And then the next day I got a phone call from Mark Branch and set up a recruit trip. So I went to OU on a Thursday, Friday, came home, took my ACT on a Saturday, drove to Stillwater Saturday evening. And I fell in love with it, and John, he had me, my senior year, I was like a 130-pounder. I cut a lot of weight that year. And he's like, I want you to be a 25-pounder. I was like, I wasn't too sure about that. And then Coach Branch pulled me aside. He's like, no. He's like, we're going to make you a 41-pounder. I was like, thank God, because 125 was not happening. And so I went in my freshman year at OSU and was back up to Johnny Thompson, and I redshirted. He's a national champ. And I knew that Charles Walker was leaving at 141, graduating. So I asked Coach, can I go up to 141? And I did. And it all went from there.
When you look at the situation, you come into a situation where, you're going to be a starter, and then a freshman comes in by the name of Daniel Frischkorn, who is from my area, was my wrestling club, ended up winning multiple state titles at Great Bridge High School. And you guys get embroiled into a battle back, you're winning the matches and the tournaments, and ultimately he ends up getting the spot and ends up placing that year. What did that whole battle, that whole process in trying to fight for a spot and in picking up those wins, what did that do for you as a person and as a wrestling coach?
That whole situation at the end, it came down to 4 matches. It was split. I had to beat Tion Ware, returning national champ, and Corey Cooperman from Lehigh, All-American, and I didn't get to wrestle Cooperman, and I lost to Tion in overtime. And that Monday, I get a phone call saying, come to my office, and I knew it wasn't going to be good. And Coach Smith told me we're going to win nationals this year. That was the year we had 5 champs. We're going to go with Daniel, give him another, we're going to give him some experience. He never beat me in a tournament. He never beat me in tryout matches. But I think that happening, I'm a firm believer in everything that happens for a reason. I think that's what made me a better coach, looking back on that. That situation that I went through, it wasn't fun. obviously, because that year I beat 4 of the top 8 guys in the country that year, and but it made me a better coach and a better person, and that's what I preach to my guys all the time. You never know what's going to happen when your last match is going to be, and never take anything for granted. And I really think people can be some people would be sour about it. Coach Smith even told me, take some time off, go, do whatever, come back, practice next week or something. I went to practice that day because I had one of my really good friends, Zach Esposito. I was his training partner. I wasn't going to let him down. He needed somebody to work out with. And so I went to practice that day and worked out with Zach because I wasn't going to have my chance being national champ, but I wanted him to go get his national title. So I tried to feed that onto my guys I have now. You win state title, there's only 14 starters, but it's those guys that are not on that trophy. Those are the ones that make you better. So it was hard, but I got over it, and it actually turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm curious what type of, there's situations where every wrestling program has them, where there's a very similar situation. You got the guy that can perform this way but loses the wrestle off, and then there's comparable performances. You've got one spot. You have to decide, and obviously you going through that situation's probably groomed you for that situation better than anybody else, at least maybe in your wrestling room. But what do you tell an athlete in that respect if you've had this type of situation pop up in the last 8 years?
I've had it. I had it happen last year. One of my really good close kids. Kid that basically is my son. How I viewed him as. He worked for me in the summer, my lawn care business, since his 7th grade. We had a freshman come in who was a stud state champ, and he beat him off the team, and that freshman ended up winning state. But it was hard for him. He couldn't, I got letters from his mom, a big long email, and I told him that this sport, what you've gone through your entire life in this sport, is going to make you a better man. It's not you getting your hand raised in the state finals. That's great, and it seems awesome, but the hard work that you've put in, it's going to make you a better man one day. So I make the kids kind of see what this sport's really teaching them, rather than the gold medals and stuff like that.
How close do you keep an eye on what goes on in Stillwater now? I mean, how active do you follow college wrestling as a high school coach?
I get in trouble a lot at school because I'm always on my computer watching Flow. Today I had brackets. I had the state brackets all across my desk, and then I was watching a replay of the OSU Missouri duel. And my principal comes in, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm not gonna lie, I'm watching wrestling, and I'm looking at state brackets." And she's like, "Okay, I understand. It's wrestling season." So yeah, I keep up with it a lot.
So this situation that's unfolding in Stillwater, you got Coach Smith's kid, you got Jacoby Smith, you got Chandler Rod, you got 3-4 guys that are battling for 2-3 spots. I mean, does it kind of bring back a little bit of deja vu?
Absolutely, and all I can say to those guys is just keep pushing. You never know. There's still a lot of season left. You never know what's going to happen. Things could change at the last minute. So yeah, it all kind of hits back home looking at that situation they have over there.
Yeah, I guess things complicate even more because, like you said, you've got a kid on your team that you had to go through last year that was kind of like your son. Now you got Coach Smith. He's got it actually is his son. That's got to add a little bit more pressure to it.
Yeah, and they'll work it out. Coach Smith, he's the best coach in the country. I know, Kel Sanderson's winning all these national titles, but Coach Smith's Coach Smith. I mean, you don't get much better than that.
Have you adopted some of his coaching mannerisms? Because I draw the comparison to Gable, because if you can watch athletes that have wrestled for Gable, they have his mannerisms, and then if you watch athletes who wrestled for somebody who wrestled for Gable, they pick on him too. It's like a second or third generation type of just the way they call stalling and stuff. Have you picked up on any of John's mannerisms as a coach?
Absolutely. I still call him all the time just to pick his brain about stuff. And I actually, about 3 weeks ago, it was before dual state, I called him and said, "Hey, Coach, I'm maybe looking at coaching at the college level. You think you could help me out?" Well, then I was at a Pee Wee tournament, and he grabbed me, and even though he's getting older, the man is still stronger than most human beings. He grabbed me. I was like, oh my gosh, who is this? And I turned around as coach. And he's like, I got your message. He's like, and he was telling me that he envies me. He wants to coach high school wrestling. I said, well, let's trade positions. I'll coach at OSU. You come here. But I still pick his brain about technique and things he's going through and things that I'm going through as a coach. And he's like, I'm going through the same stuff. And he helps me out a lot. But his technique, I mean, that's what we do. His scoring, scoring lots of takedowns. That's what we practice. And I had one of the best teachers that you could ever have. And I got to I take everything that he's taught me and put it into my kids too.
What's the most fun thing about coaching high school wrestling?
Watching kids grow up. I mean, this senior group I have now is they had one of the most, I coached junior high football, and I had this senior group in junior high football. We never lost a game in either 7th or 8th grade. And then they won the Perry Junior High tournament, which there's only been one other team to do it. And then just watching them grow and seeing where they were at one time and to where they are now, it makes it enjoyable. I always tell them, actually Thursday night we go to the hotel before state. I give them a long speech about watching you win a state title, watching you win your matches means more to me than anything that I ever won. It gives so much. There's so much enjoyment in it, and I think that's what I truly love about high school wrestling. Just watching them grow.
When it comes back to Perry, there's a documentary in the works of Price of Legacy. Chance Leonard's been on it. He's been on podcasts to talk about it on Track Wrestling and such. What's it been like to have kind of a documentary film being shot around that program?
Well, actually, they're shooting today. They came into town. They filmed a look. They were there for the 1,000th dual win. They're in town today. They were doing interviews with 3 of my state champs today. Then they came to practice today. It adds a little bit of pressure, but I think the kids kind of dig it because you see the pace of practice picked up. So now I'm on TV. I'm going to be in a movie, and it's fun. You just got to take it for what it is. I try to tell them to block out the cameras and block out this and that, but it's hard. But it's good when it's done. The movie is done. The film, it's going to be awesome. Just to show. It's going to be built around this streak that everybody's talking about. Since 1962, we haven't gone longer than 2 years without winning. Well, the year they first started filming, if we would have lost, we'd have broke the streak, but we ended up winning. And now they're coming back and filming this time, and it's going to be really cool when it comes out.
When we look at just talk about the town square, that little wrestling plaza that it is. I haven't had a chance to make it out to Perry to see it yet. It's on my to-do list, but explain what that is to those who've never been through the center of Perry.
It's got every state champ, every state championship team, every all-stater, every wrestling queen. And then it's got 2 bronze statues, 10-foot statues of Olympic champ Jack Van Bibber, Danny Hodge. I make my guys, we run every morning. And we run by that every day just to know, it's kind of a mental thing for them to see that. And then it's got this huge arch. I mean, it's got a big 40-foot circle wrestling mat in downtown. It's incredible. Like the whole site of it is just, it's incredible. The regional tournament this weekend, they were kind of promoting going down there, and a guy from Sperry, which is a town by me, where I'm from, he coached against me and he coached me a little bit growing up. He took his whole team down there 2 years ago when they came into town for a duel. And it's just, people don't understand how much history is in there. And it's incredible. Like just to see it it's incredible. And to be a part of it's even better.
You talk about the history. That's one thing. As somebody in my late 30s, moving into my 40s, we look at these history books, and everything is always about what's recent. Recently bias. Oh, I can't remember when the last time that happened, and we're thinking maybe 2000, 2001. How much of the history of the sport is really ingrained into your wrestlers? How much do they appreciate a Jack Van Bibber or a Dan Hodge?
They anytime, because they'll come back to the wrestling room. and Dan Hodge comes to every home duel. One of my kids, that's his great grandpa. To see it's funny because it makes me be a kid too, just seeing those guys. But those guys really, really, they enjoy that, seeing those people. Danny Hodge and Jack Swagger was in the room a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And then there's a big. I guess Jack Swagger had his first UFC fight a couple weeks ago, and they all got together and watched it, and they cherish it. They understand what they're a part of and what they're doing.
What's it like to coach there, having not grown up in Perry? Sometimes you can come into a place that's kind of got that tradition, that small town feel, and you can be viewed as an outsider for a while. How long did it take you to crack the nut to be like, okay, yeah, you're one of us now?
That's the $1 million question. I've gotten asked that a million times. When I came in, I was accepted right away. Being from OSU, coming from a winning tradition, 4 national titles, people knew that I knew that I knew what I was talking about. And then I took over as the head coach, and we lost that first year. And some people kind of doubted me, but the people that really meant, the people that really mattered, the boys, they knew what we were doing. We just had a really bad year that year, and it didn't take long for people to see that that even though I'm not from Perry, I know wrestling, and that I'm about winning, and that's what that's the main thing. Is just I'm about winning, about teaching young boys to be grown, grow up to be great men one day. So it didn't take long for them to warm up to me.
You've kind of touched on both of these next questions that I was shooting for. Kyle Klingman over at the Gable Museum up in Waterloo, Iowa, was wondering, what really is Dan Hodge's current influence in Perry?
Anytime he comes around, people are going to stop and shake his hand.
They might regret it, but they love it at the same time. It's like, ow, my hand. The guy's like almost 90, right?
And it's funny that people think that, but if he grabs your hand, it's like shaking my 7-year-old son's hand. Very gentle. Now, the first time that I had a run-in with him, my first year here, we were at Dual State, and I'm standing there, and this bear comes up and grabs me from behind. And I can't explain the strength that I felt. He picks me up in the air, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I turn around, it's Danny Hodge. And he's like, what's up, champ? I was like, oh my God. And I'm just starstruck, he comes around. You'll see him down at the Comeback Cafe every now and then. But he has a lot of influence because people, anytime he's in the gym, there's little kids running up to him, just like if you're at Tulsa Nationals, they're going to run up to him and get autographs because it's Danny Hodge.
And what about Jake Hager, aka Jack Swagger? You said he kind of comes in the room. I mean, what's it like that? There's a current alum that's kind of on TV, and it's got a little flash for the kids these days too.
Yeah, well, since I've been here, he's been back one time. I know he's busy with his life, but when he came back and for the first time they were filming the movie, those guys went over and shook his hand and were like, "Oh, he's on TV, he's WWE." They were asking him about wrestling so and so, WWE. It's pretty funny. They don't. They need to know more about him when he was wrestling in college, when he was doing the real wrestling. But he's it's funny. It turns them all into little kids again.
Yeah, I kind of geek out a little bit. I listen to some of these pro wrestling podcasts, and I think back to the throwback days, like in the 80s growing up watching the NWA, and I just kind of geek out like a little kid again. So I guess it's one of those things. Although is it kind of cool for the kids to see if he's in the room where it has it, wait a minute, he's actually doing real wrestling moves. This isn't the stuff that's he's not being thrown into a turnbuckle.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to watch him.
When we look at Perry as a whole, I mean, is there a philosophy that came with this coaching job, or was it something that they allowed you to kind of mold these athletes in the way you were trained?
A little bit of both. I took over, and that's what I tell people. I'm not doing anything different that's been done. This is a well-oiled machine. Hard work, outworking your opponents. That's stuff that I took from OSU that was already ingrained here. And our main philosophy is that we've got it written on our walls, just outwork your opponents in every situation. And, that was, I constantly reiterate that in practices and, put yourself in that situation. You want to go break that, you want to go break your opponent. Physically, you want to break them and make them not ever want to wrestle you again. And, I took that from OSU. It was already here. So it's just an ongoing thing.
When the world of wrestling comes together in the state of Oklahoma, and you've got, whether it be the state dual championships or the individual state championships, there's the common players. You've mentioned some of the names, the Tuttles, the Perrys, the Broken Arrows, the powerhouse programs. I mean, you came from Collinsville, which has had a pretty good run here the last, 6-7 years in winning state championships. What is the environment like at an Oklahoma high school state wrestling championship?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, the fairgrounds is packed. Actually, yesterday every Sunday after regional tournament, I always take my team down to the fairgrounds. And somehow we always get it, like God's looking out for us because there's always a door open. And I started doing it my second year as a head coach. And I wanted the guys to kind of visualize it. And I'd take them through weigh-ins and I walk them down the floor. And this is where you're going to wrestle. And you look up here, you're going to see nothing but maroon shirts. And the whole gym, Saturday night for the state finals, it's packed. And it gets loud and it gets crazy. Friday night's probably the best night to be there, though, for the semifinals match. Those are fun. It's not a sellout, but it's pretty close, and it gets crazy. You've got teams like all the 3A teams want to beat Perry, and when we lose a match, every 3A team, and then you got Tuttle over there, and if Tuttle loses a match, every 4A team's rooting against them. It's fun. You can't beat it.
What's it now like to look at your alma mater, which is, winning in 5A? You sit there and be like, are they now the bad boys of 5A in Oklahoma?
They have been for, like 5 or 6 years. Right now, they've got their first 6 weights are just studs. The Skytube, which is a town 20 minutes to the east of them, has kind of taken over the role now. They beat them at dual state. They just beat them at regionals. The state tournament's going to be fun watching those two go at it. So it's, but for several years, they've taken that role. When I took over as head coach, we duel them at the OCU duels. And, my head coach is still coaching over there. He's not the head coach anymore, but, I want to beat him I want to beat him bad. Just to say, look, I'm beat you now, coach. And, they beat us, but the past, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, we've gotten the better of them in tournaments. So
I would say that was going to be one of my short time questions. I'm just going to leave that in there because we'll do that in here. But actually, we'll do that now. It's a fun part of the program. I call it short time on short time. I throw 10 questions at you in about 90 seconds because the timer really doesn't really matter. I just want the first thing that comes into your mind, rapid reaction kind of thing. Are you ready for the challenge?
We'll try it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Question 1, what's the best place to eat in Stillwater?
Chili's.
What's the best place to eat in Perry?
Comeback Cafe.
Question 3, your favorite cowboy wrestler of all time?
Mark Branch.
Question 4, favorite team or coach to beat in competition?
OU.
Question 5, what is your favorite wrestling shoe of all time?
Oh, man, that one's tough. The Aggressor.
All right, question 6. I'm going to borrow this one from Jason Powell and Johnny Hendricks. Noodling, you ever done it?
I love noodling.
All right, I got to stop the clock. Explain. Okay, biggest type of, biggest thing you've ever caught noodling?
57-pound flathead.
Jeez. Okay.
And actually, I had a 57 on one hand and then a little bit smaller on the other hand, and my assistant coach had to help me pull it out. My arms are crossed. That one bit me, and then I felt the other one. I grabbed it too. So it was fun.
All right, what possesses some? The fear of snapping turtles is what prevents people from really trying to do this thing. What you ever had a scare with something like that?
Actually, the very first time I went, the very first hole I went into, I picked up, I thought it was a rock, and it was a big old soft-shell turtle. That scared me.
Okay, yeah, because the joke is we were years ago, me and some friends were hanging out after nationals, and Jason Powell comes in and goes, "One time, me and Johnny Hendricks went noodling," in his thick Oklahoma accent. I mean, it was quality stuff. Okay, back.
And every time we go to Nebraska wrestling camp, me and Jason Powell sit and talk noodling stories the whole time.
You know what? We can go off on a whole nother. Next time Ronnie Delk's on the show, we're talking noodling. All right, back to question 7. Best high school wrestling state.
New Jersey.
Question 8. Out of any Division I school that needs to add a wrestling program, where would you like to add a program?
Texas.
What movie sums up, outside of the documentary, but what like Varsity Blues type of, teen sports movie kind of sums up Perry wrestling the best?
Oh, man. Vision Quest. I mean, it's a classic wrestling movie, and it's working hard. You got to work hard to get what you want.
I think the answer to any wrestling movie question, Vision Quest, is always going to be the correct answer, no matter if it's right or wrong. All right, question 10.
Yeah.
Who's the best wrestler you've ever coached?
Kid by name of Steven Swan.
Steven Swan. I remember that name. Yeah, he's pretty good. That's pretty solid. All right, you're out of the I don't know, the rapid fire. I've called it short time on short time forever. I don't even know what the heck I'm going to do with it. But Ronnie, it's been an educational situation here I'm learning about Perry High School wrestling. And for those out there, where can they find more about one, the wrestling program itself, and two, Chase Leonard's documentary that should be coming out hopefully soon?
Just follow the Perry Wrestling Facebook page. We keep everything up to date on there. And then the Price of Legacy Facebook page. There's everything you need to know about the movie is on there. And he shares my stuff, I share his stuff. So anything you need to know, how we're doing in tournaments, history of it, we always put it on our Facebook page.
Ronnie Delk, appreciate the time. Been very, very educational. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, sir.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MattTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you're already listening and you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.